So what about particle matter pollution? As I alluded to previously, it's categorized by size, but the composition is what really matters. And so, particles of 2.5 microns or less pass through your upper airway and actually do deposit in the lung tissue. And once it's deposited there, what happens from then on is still under investigation, but people believe there are different ways that it can cause or be associated with poor health effects. But on a large scale, when I talk about studies of large populations, what have we seen associated with particle matter pollution? Death from cardiac causes are increased, hospital admissions, death from strokes, heart attacks, lung irritation, and then changes in the rhythm of our hearts. And then also it can cause spasm of our arteries. So this is for the doubters in the room. So what if there's an association? Why do you think that this is true? Well, there's some science to support that this happens. And this is, again, based on animal models and experiments. And you hear about antioxidants. Well, antioxidants protects us from oxidant stress. And so these particles seem to cause instability in our blood vessels, and the plaques in our arteries can become a little bit more unstable in oxidative stress. You can have more vascular spasms. Then, of course, when the particles get deposited, the properties of those particles can translocate into your bloodstream, like the heavy metal components, in case there are some. And then there is some association with impairing your immunity or ability to fight infection. So this forum couldn't come at a more timely time, because there was, again, a recent New England Journal of Medicine study that showed in a huge epidemiologic study of 51 metropolitan areas, including Cleveland. Do you see it right there? There's Cleveland. Yeah, I thought that was very important to include. That when they looked at pollution levels from 70s to 80s and compare it to 90s to 2000, that as particle matter pollution improved, our life expectancy increased. And this is controlling for smoking and people with chronic health diseases. And it increases by 0.6 year, which is about 7 months. And people say, okay, so what, 7 months? But, I don't think that we're doing this to increase our lifespan, but just to realize that there is such an association, and whatever we do makes a difference. And so Cleveland not only is a dot on that graph, but itself has other reasons to be interested in improving air quality. And it's a metropolitan area, it's racially diverse, and it has a major asthma problem, for instance, if you're worried about the kids. A study by the Greater Cleveland Asthma Coalition showed that more than 16% of children in the school systems have symptoms of asthma, when really what they say, the prevalence or the actual amount of asthma in the world is about 5%. So you see, metropolitan Cleveland has a lot invested on top of economy and everything else to improve particle matter pollution. My kids, I had to wrench these away from them to take a picture. But basically, why I put this up here is that the Natural Resources Defense Council talk about, sources of pollution, and they found that kids in school buses, in the back of a school bus, is exposed to 5 to 15 times higher levels of particle pollution than someone in the car in front of them. And the reasons for that are many, including the fact that many school buses are actually diesel. Now, that's going to be transformed over time, but another thing that I wanted to show you, that in cooperation with the Cleveland Municipal School District and the Clean Air Century campaign, we were able to do a little experiment, Dr. Castro and I. And I know it's a busy slide, but I wanted to show you that basically the blue and the purple bars are different buses. And at the very leftmost portion of each graph, you see the difference from being off to being on at the tailpipe level. So you see that there's an 8-fold increase in particle matter 2.5 concentrations at the tailpipe from off to on at the leftmost. And then when you look at the amount based on different properties that deposits in the lower parts of the lung and the upper parts of the lung, there's an 80-fold increase of particles from off to on. The good news is, if you don't idle, it doesn't happen. And then the other good news is there are other measures to try and control it, like low sulfur diesel and also particle traps, and that actually decreases it. That's the second column over, which shows that that decreases it in half or so, or depletes it altogether, the particle concentrations. So there are measures to decrease it, but not idling is one very simple way to decrease particle matter pollution. So how can we reduce our contribution to air pollution? I'm sure Mr. Mayor will be talking about this, but avoiding idling in vehicles, especially around children. And if you think that idling is good because you have to keep the car warm, let me show you a picture I took in Toronto, which says 3-minute idle limit. And Toronto, last I checked, is colder than Cleveland. And idling pollutes and is illegal. So there are other things you can do, which is just basically healthier ways of living, like walking and bicycling whenever you can, and then avoiding mowing lawns in the afternoon and early evening. So just in summary, I hope I'm able to impart some of the importance of, from the health standpoint, that controlling levels of air pollution can do. And I think that the healthcare community is now becoming more aware of this, and we're ready to partner with you in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khatri. Remember, at the end of all three presentations, we'll have all of them up here, and then at that time, we'll entertain some questions.